While my talk is being pulled up, I just thought I would introduce myself briefly. My name is Aaron Head. I'm a physicist, former propulsion test engineer, and now a project manager with the Rocket Propulsion Test Program Office. And I'll tell you a little bit about what that means in a minute here when my presentation loads. Very sorry for the misfire, if that's what's going on. All right. Taking that away. So what I'm going to tell you a little bit about right now is how NASA is constructed. It used to be in such a way that there were strong personalities at each one of the field centers, and the headquarters didn't like that so much. So they developed these portfolio capabilities where we have assets that are scattered across the multiple centers. The portfolios are cross-cutting and horizontal, and they manage these capabilities for the agency that are geographically distributed. So you can see here, I'm with RPT, but some of the others that I interface with on the regular basis are SETMO and AETC. Here's kind of how we are distributed. You saw from Rich's talk a little more in detail. These are just the centers that I care about primarily. No offense, Johnson. The redhead stepchild of Johnson is Wistiff. They handle our hypergalls. That's a fancy word that means they catch fire when they touch. Very nasty stuff, very poisonous. That's why we do it out in the desert. Otherwise, SSC handles most of our large liquid rocket engine testing. MSFC is R&D, a lot of small stuff there. Obviously, KSC, we have some associate testing that goes on there, kind of horizontal infrastructure stuff. ATF here hosts the ISP, and Lewis Field had some capability, but some of that's being phased out. And I'm just going to real quickly run through these slides. I'm pirating these from a talk that I give to the aerospace industry when I talk to other rocket test pros. So here you go. It's a quick rundown of our different capabilities at the different centers to give you some idea of the kind of knowledge we have to maintain just across a large scope. So at MSFC, you can see there, there's not too much going on, 2 primary test stands. Now they pump out an incredible amount of work at those 2 places, as well as the solid rockets, which are used relatively infrequently, but we do get a lot of good data out of those. At Stennis, again, that's the home of most of our large liquid engine cryogenic capability. A, E, and B complex, you just see some highlights there. They range from tiny little test stands for doing rapid application development up through, a couple million pound, like you saw with the stage test for the Artemis mission. White sands, again, we have a lot of cross-cutting infrastructure at some of these places. So in addition to these test stands proper, where you would actually strap an article and hot fire them, we have a lot of support structures like the large altitude support system. So if you want to generate a vacuum, basically it's a Venturi effect similar to a carburetor. You fire a rocket engine that creates a suction, pulls a vacuum down in a test chamber. Inside that test chamber, you light off your primary test article and collect data. It's very expensive to run steam ejectors and pull that kind of vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum. That is very, very true. And yeah, very expensive, lots of maintenance. So our current knowledge management, I shamelessly borrow this from Rich. I don't know if he created or borrowed this graphic from somewhere else, but I love it. Because this is precisely how we perform at the moment. So we are charged with action item creation across the geographically distributed centers, test directive administration. So basically you don't want folks making their own kingdom. People want to work, that's what they want to do. And so if they hear about a project, their inclination is to build up that capability and do it without the forethought to say, who's going to maintain this when this customer is gone? And that's where we come in. We usually get the bill for that sort of thing, so we're trying to put ourselves in the front end of that conversation. Metrics data collection, we all have a boss that we report to. Test and utilization data, facility health data, risk data, FM&M in our flat to shrinking budget environment. It's becoming more and more important to manage our knowledge of our test capabilities, of the state of those test capabilities, and of the utility to projects and customers. And we have regular board meetings that we have to keep track of. When big decisions are made, that can sometimes, you really need that record retention to remember who said what and how it went down. And then finally, some file storage, obviously. So this is kind of a high-level overview of the systems that we're using and the functions that we're conducting and the systems that we're using to solve that. So obviously we have Outlook all over the place, emailing files around with no data validation, and personnel are having to collate everything. We have a proprietary Windows NT system that was written in the early aughts that is great fun. We have everyone's favorite SharePoint that everyone is trying to migrate to, and it's just on the cusp of being useful, so that it tricks you into trying to use it and then stepping on your own feet all the time. And then of course we have Windows File Share and external systems, these monuments that we must, and I'll address that a little bit going forward, but we have NASA mandated systems, so everyone has this problem. All the different portfolios in NASA proper. And you can think of all the other functions that NASA has, like procurement, for instance, which is like a black box to us. So when I want to buy something, I toss the grenade over the fence. I fill out all their forms that don't make sense, and then I toss the grenade over the fence, and they work their magic, and maybe they toss it back, or I don't really know what happens after that. But there are external systems that we must comport with, and I hope to alleviate some of that too. This is just a quick screen cap, an example of our early 2000s systems. Everything's high level because I don't know that, I wanted to avoid sharing any data, which would mean I would have to go through a pretty cumbersome process to get everything vetted for presenting to you. But this is just basically you can tell it looks like it was written on Windows 3.11. It's really pretty awful. Even though there's no data there, it's all tabular. A lot of overwriting errors. It's fun. So here's a quick test inquiry example of how we do business. So customer X will come to us and say, hey, we would like to conduct a hot fire test campaign. Which one of your facilities can you conduct it? So basically we'll generate action items. Again, I'm listing, all right, how do we accomplish that underneath there? So we use all of these various systems. None of these are really easily searchable. They're all institutional and they're all siloed. So it's bad on bad on bad. Many processes along the way until finally we get directive closeout, where we use that NT system to store all our record retention. And as an example of a system that we must comport with, we are not allowed to have a forward-facing, public accessible form through SharePoint or otherwise, I've been told. So I generated a PDF form that a customer can fill out, and then I have an ingestion script. So I've just got a little Python script that reads all this back into a table for me after I get it back from said customer. But you can see that's just one example of the disjointed way we're forced to do things sometimes. Here's an example of some facility health data that we maintain. So as we're conducting tests, now this is really old data, so none of this is true anymore. That's why I feel pretty comfortable sharing it here, but this is the kind of thing we're looking for to report up to our management, like what is the health of all the subsystems at a particular stand. It's that feeds into some of the metrics upon which we are judged, and that's how basically things roll out. Now, you might see here some health details like the deflector's in poor condition, All that risk information feeds into our decisions when we do facility maintenance and modernization projects. And so that becomes very important, especially in today's environment of constrained budgets. Additionally, some TSUS. So this is for AFRL, who reports on the stands you see on the left. This is a little shared spreadsheet that I've made with a lot of data validation. This is because test engineers at the DoD and NASA do not communicate. The certificates don't match. I cannot so much as send files to them. They get stripped out. So they use a wiki-based, JIRA wiki-based system via an analog to my organization called TRMC, Test Resource Management Control. And basically I could share this file there and get their updates and then bring it back manually. Again, big headache. But I also do this for our NASA partners, and this is put out and shared with everyone. They can update it rather than sending, it's one step above file management by email. It's all shared, everyone's talking to a common file at least. The future consolidated approach. So I met up with Rich and Lexi through an intern that we had. I was just going to craft a MySQL database and a quick HMI for users that would probably be no better than our aged Windows NT kernel system. And I was dead set on that, but Rich and Lexi made a convert out of me, and I saw the beauty of the system that is MediaWiki with Maze on the top. So what I hope to do in the early rollout is capture a subset of these primary use cases in the MediaWiki solution, and in the midterm eliminate, although it's, you know, you're never going to completely eliminate emailing files, we can do so primarily. We can retire that Windows NT system that I'm paying a fortune to maintain, and we can retire our Windows file share. And we can accomplish all that with our MediaWiki solution, which I'm sure you've all heard about through Rich. It's pretty much identical. I am in fact stealing a lot of their tools and using them for my own purposes, so kudos to them. They're excellent developers. Here is kind of the layout that I hope to have. The home on the wiki range. So GRC is already up and running. So I'm in the process of standing up a software security plan. NASA, we have plans for everything, no matter how cumbersome. And that is thankfully drawing nigh on completion. We have our independent review scheduled for the end of this month, early next month. So we should be in operation, full operation, by middle of this year. But I hope to roll out a bevy of wikis, one for each of our primary facilities across the agency that will enable us to collect in real time and in a distributed manner all that information that I talked about before. So Ernest Hemingway was once asked, how did you go broke? He famously quipped, 2 ways, gradually, then suddenly. And that is my plan for wiki takeover across, my concerns. And so the initial deploy, I hope to capture risk, facility, health, and project data. So integrating those schedules across the multiple test stands, across the multiple centers, and the blackout time that you need to effect repairs. So you might not think of that, but you have commercial customers that want to come in here and test, but you might have a 60-inch water line that you have to repair. That is not an easy job. It's buried. That's 5 feet, right? It's an enormous undertaking. So managing the utilization schedules and getting the requisite blackout time in there is very important to us. So within the next 2 to 4 months, I hope to have the initial deploy of those systems. Within 6 to 12 months, I'd like to do facility maintenance modernization projects. And so we currently utilize, again, it's a spreadsheet system where we travel to a center, and we each one of the center reps brings their top X number of projects. We slate them, compare it to the budget available and strategic objectives, and then decide which ones get funding. So it's a pretty good process, but it's ripe for takeover via the wiki. and additional metrics data. And then long term, I hope to fully replace the AMS system. To replace our technical task agreement, this is where we spell out what deliverables you have and what money we're going to give you. And then test directive maintenance, so the closeout and variance. So if you have a directive to execute and you underrun or overrun, we need to know. This comes with some issues, right? Because financial data is secure, and so that's a challenge that I've put off for the long term. I'm going to tackle the low-hanging fruit first. So this is just a snapshot of, my splash page. ATF is already up and running, so that one's easy. Those are already created. And I'm ready to bulk load a bunch of information for the other centers. And the beautiful thing is the object inheritance properties on this multi-class object will allow the end user the freedom to add subsystems at will, and will allow us to subscribe to and drill down into that information. So it's important for some of the centers. They like to vet their risk information closely before they let it come up to the RPT level. We're a level 2 organization, so level 1 is headquarters, level 2 are intermediate portfolios such as my group, and then level 3 are the test centers. And so the funding trickles down from the top. And before you raise your hand asking for money, the individual centers really like to control that. Now the inheritance process and some of the role-based features that we have are going to enable centers to not advertise their problem, not shout to the rooftop what their problems are until they're ready. So it's a great solution so far. So selling the dream, you got to pitch it to the money people. So these are the big objections that I receive. We already use Brand X, and Brand X I mean SharePoint. And why I mean SharePoint as well. So NASA as a whole already has invested a considerable amount in SharePoint. Now I think this is a lot of smoke and mirrors, because every time I've tried to get something out of them, basically they wear you down until you just go away. You keep having to ask and you keep getting denied, and the product doesn't meet your expectations, and so it's a unvirtuous cycle. What I hope to say, I've answered these at least loosely, and I'd love to hear, during the course of this conference, from y'all's perspective, new arguments to buttress my own and to, help me get more funding. Oh, and I think that's about it. You can contact me, and I've got my information there. I presume these are going out to these presentations are loaded. Yes, okay, great. So you'll be able to contact me if you have any questions, concerns, comments. So thank you very much. And I will be, I plan in the near future to be hiring out some of these services. So if any of you that own these companies, I'd love to get your business card or an email from you, I can put you in my contact list. So any questions?